Hey, good morning. I'm Sven, Masterson, one of the co-founders and mentors in the Mentoring Men community. And in this video, I want to talk to you about the mind and fitness. Now, one of the things I've noticed in my career as a man is how often fitness is actually tied to men's work. And actually, one of the things we pride ourselves about in the Mentoring Men community is that though we value fitness, we think that fitness alone, physical fitness, is just one small piece of men's work and personal development. And yet fitness can be really a great platform and a good place to experience some deeper truths. And so I wanted to tell you or speak to you a little bit about where fitness, physical fitness, takes me as a man and how it helps me in life in more ways than just having a strong heart and limbs and muscles and flexibility. The number one way I think fitness helps me as a man is actually putting me in the spot where I encounter inner conflict. And so that is really my favorite part about a fitness regimen, is that I come to this ritualistic kind of altercation with myself. And it's important to understand that we have this inner dialogue and to know what to do with it. So today that showed up for me like this. I have a fitness trainer who assigns me workouts throughout the week. And today I open up my coaching app and I see that my workout includes doing a 5,000 meter row at high cardio output. And so, I get started, I do my warm-up exercises, and immediately I notice my brain does this thing. It looks at the screen on my rower, and it's looking at my pace, and it's calculating how much more of this do I gotta do to get to 5,000 meters. And so then it starts to kind of antagonize me a little bit, and it's saying, man, there's a lot of work to do here. You're only 30 seconds in, and man, you've got at least 20 more minutes of this, right? And so I start to become aware of this inner dialogue, this inner conflict. Now, for most of my life, I didn't really understand that the inner dialogue we have is a bifurcated experience, meaning there's more than one voice or part to that dialogue. And until I understood the nature of these pieces and parts in my inner dialogue, I routinely just gave in to this defeated voice because I didn't know what to do with it in my immaturity. I didn't understand it, and I just assumed that if that was there, it had to be obeyed. And so as I've matured as a man, I've walked with a number of men through life, as a number of men have walked through life with me, I've really come to learn how to articulate this inner dialogue, to understand what's going on inside of me when I'm experiencing this challenge, and more importantly, what to do with it. And so it really boils down to this. I've had to learn that I must have the voices of my desire be much louder, 10 times louder than the voices of my defeat. And so when we do anything as men, we get into it and we start to hear both voices. And in our immaturity and insecurity, usually younger in life for most men, 20s, 30s, and younger, we're so accustomed to having these really loud voices of defeat that we tend to yield to them. And those voices say, are you sure, man? Don't you have better things to do than this rowing today? Wouldn't it be better just to do this later? And so we have all these inner saboteurs, these voices that are just defeating the very things we want. Now, have you ever asked yourself, why do we have voices that are against what other voices within us want, right? And those would be the voices of our desire. The voices of desire might say, this is really good for you. This is really important work that you're doing for your body, for your mind, for your consciousness. It's important for your longevity. It's important for your mission to be physically fit. And so right away, I have this inner dialogue, these two voices, one that is my desires and one that is my defeat. Now, I've come to understand that these defeatist voices, for the most part, I believe, are just the nature of the brain. We're all born with brains, and those brains have a function as an organ. Just like your heart has a function, your liver, your kidneys, your brain is an organ dedicated to the conservation of energy, keeping you upright, alive, and breathing, and for the most part, comfortable. And comfortable, from the brain's perspective, is to be as caloric conserving as possible. So let's spend as little energy as possible so that we can preserve ourselves in case we have to fight or run or flee or whatnot. And so our brains, all of our brains, have this notion, physiological notion of homeostasis, which means kind of your resting state. How much calories do you burn kind of doing nothing? That's also in fitness circles called your basal metabolic rate, your at-rest calorie expenditure. And so our organ, the brain, is dedicated to saying, you know what? Let's just keep everything as even-keeled as possible. Because if we work hard, well, we have to spend energy. And if we spend energy, then we have, it starts calculating and predicting. We have to go find a way to get it. We have to eat. We have to rest and blah, 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 blah. And this inner dialogue then starts to show up with kind of what feels like a self-sabotage to this other voice, the voice of our desire, the voice, what I would call our consciousness, or maybe if you're from a faith background, you might call that your spiritual self. But these two voices are in conflict. And if you don't understand this conflict, the nature of it, the ins and outs, why one does one, why one has the other, and you feed the wrong one, well, you end up giving in. And you end up just being defeated. And you end up in a case like today, for example, if I had done that, just scratching my workout. Now, in the reality of things, a 5,000 meter row is not really that big of a deal. And so here's what I do, just to kind of explain how I start to overcome the voices of defeat in these moments. First of all, I become aware of the kind of voices that I'm experiencing in my inner dialogue, and I label them, or I categorize them. Oh, there's a saboteur, there's my ego or my brain trying to get me to go in the direction of comfort and ease and rest. And then I'll think about, well, what are my desires here? Why am I doing this, right? I'll start to label those voices. For me, in my kind of system of understanding self, I label those heart or heart and brain, just to make it really simple and easy, and to know that some things for me in life are fueled by passion, by things that transcend maybe what makes sense from a calorie expenditure or effort I put in. And so once I become aware of these voices, then I just kind of sit with it a minute and I watch. What does one tell me? What's the other tell me? And I start to try to feed these voices of desire. Now, one surefire way to do that helps me in rowing, it helps me in a moment of really any kind of stress or conflict in life. It helps me if I'm facing an angry person, neighbor, wife, if I'm facing any kind of stressful challenge or circumstance, is to get present. Now, we talk about presence a lot as men and in personal development. It's kind of a buzzword these days, but very few people talk about, well, how do you be present? Well, one reason people don't know how is because they don't start with understanding that there are at least two voices going on in your inner dialogue. One, which is this heart/consciousness/spiritual self, and the other, which is the brain that's saying, quit, go conserve energy, go back to sleep, hit the snooze button, eat another pint of ice cream. And so until you understand these two voices, you can't think about being present, because one of those voices is fundamentally a voice of the future, and that is the brain. Because the brain is an organ dedicated to scanning what's going on, calculating and predicting what's about to happen next, and how to be safe and comfortable, pain-free, and energy conserving in that future. And so its whole narrative is about the future. Now, you might be wondering, why are we talking about this today? Don't you usually talk about relationships? I'm talking about it today because it's that same voice that when we follow it, whether in the gym or anywhere else, we leave the present. And as soon as we leave the present, we're actually in the domain of the brain. We're up in our heads, as some people might say. And when you're up in your head, you're actually not living in this moment. And so you start to live in the anticipated pain, suffering, discomfort of the future. And when you do that in the gym, maybe in a 5,000 meter row, you'll quit. When you do it when you're doing a heavy lift, you'll quit, because your brain is fixated on the future and already suffering the anticipated pain from that future, even though in reality, it's not happening yet. And so that's the brain, that's the voice of the future, and it is to leave being present and to get up in your head and start living in the future. So to be present, we need to Instead, focus on this other voice. That's the voice of desire, the voice that says, what is happening right now? Now, a surefire way for me to get present is gratitude. Now, gratitude, I personally believe, is not an artifact or is not sourced in the brain. The brain really has no real need for gratitude. The brain is quite pragmatic. If you ever watch psychologists like Phil Zimbardo and other guys, you can quickly learn that in the right circumstances, our brain will do unspeakably horrible and evil things if it means hanging on to or preserving our sense of security, safety, provision, etc. And so it's really not a virtuous organ. And so I believe our virtue and values come from this other place that we might call consciousness, that might transcend maybe a certain body part, but that really has a different set of operating procedures and guidelines. Maybe we call these values. And so gratitude, when I express gratitude, when a man expresses gratitude, it helps him kind of pull out of his head. He stops feeling like he's all about the future, and he's just focused on this right now. And so when I'm rowing, for example, I will actually just express gratitude on every pull, just like that. Thank you. Thank you that I have the ability to do that stroke. Thank you for 1 more calorie or 3 more meters or whatever it is. And when I do that, I'm just focused on right now. Now, my brain at the same time wants to look at the display on my rower and say, how many more? How much longer we got to do this? And this is just part of the inner conflict that we have as beings with many parts, is that we have one part that wants to know what's around the corner, how much longer, brain. And then we have this other part that says, thank you, I can be grateful for this moment. And in one stroke at a time, can just express gratitude that I am making a substantial bit of progress towards my desire for fitness, my desire for longevity and wholeness. And so what I do in the gym or in any of these moments is get really present in a moment by moment gratitude. And rowing, fitness is actually really handy this way because there are reps, meaning every time I pull back on the rower, I can express gratitude. That's a moment right there, a rowing moment, gratitude, right? Another rowing moment, gratitude. If it's a pedal stroke on my assault bike or what they call the devil's tricycle, it's gratitude, stroke at a time. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And it might sound kind of crazy to just try to get yourself in this kind of gratitude reps, but it's really, really helpful. What it does is it brings you as a practice, a practical practice, away from that dialogue that is all about the future. And it can be really, really useful. Now, what do you do, though, when you're in a heated argument with a spouse or a girlfriend, and she's looking at you with the devil's gaze, right? Maybe the female equivalent in gaze as an assault bike. And you're like, oh man, this is gonna suck. It's gonna hurt. She's really angry. Well, you can go to the same place. And you might say, well, but what reps can I do, right? I don't have pedals. I don't have pull strokes. What are the reps when you're talking with an angry, upset wife? Well, the reps you have built into your body are your breathing. You have the ability to inhale, gratitude, exhale, gratitude, right? And sometimes you might say, inhale, gratitude, exhale, release. Just release the stress. Release your need to control the future. Release your desire, your brain's desire that everything be comfortable, right? And so we have this built-in mechanism in our bodies where when we breathe, we're doing reps. We're doing reps actually around the clock our whole life. And if you want to be present, a great way to do that is to attach gratitude to your breathing in stressful moments. And it doesn't have to be woo-wooey, all this stuff. It's just simple as when you breathe in, I'm grateful, thank you. Exhale, just let it go, right? And if you do that even 3-4 times in a moment of conflict, in a moment of stress, in a moment of facing an angry wife, and you just remind yourself, I'm okay right now. Like right now, in this moment, there's nothing going on. I'm not bleeding to death. I haven't lost my home and family. I haven't really lost anything. I'm actually okay. And this kind of self-coaching, and it's all about feeding the one voice and hushing the other, is necessary to start to condition life and also the brain that you're okay in those moments. And so the more we do this, the more we feed that voice of desire, virtue, heart, consciousness, etc., the more our brain learns, oh, okay, this is normal. And what ends up happening is we actually change our level of homeostasis in the brain. This is the big benefit, is you recondition the brain to like knowing, hey, I'm okay when I'm doing a 5,000 meter row, and when I'm in front of an angry woman, and when things are stressful. And you learn to actually be calm in stressful moments. Now I can actually prove this even with my own fitness data. I could show you examples for where extremely stressful moments happen, and my Whoop data, if you don't have a Whoop, get one, will show you just at peace, just a calmness. Now that would have not have been the case a decade ago, but from this kind of inner coaching, from this kind of like self mastery kind of dialogue, where that voice of desire is kind of defeating that voice of defeat and reminding me that I'm okay. My body has become conditioned to that. It's actually improved my fitness. It's improved my blood pressure. It's improved my physiology. It's improved my physique. It's improved my ability to sustain workouts and stressful moments, because I have learned that this one voice is the voice of me. It's the voice of self. And this other voice is a voice that can serve me sometimes when it says danger, danger, danger ahead, right? If I'm getting chased by a mountain lion or a bear is coming out of my woods, I want that voice. I want that voice to say, yo, get the heck out of here. But when I sit down on a rower, or I sit down in front of my wife and she's angry, that voice is not helpful. It's actually trying to steer me from the perception of suffering. But there is no suffering. I'm not suffering when I'm on a rower. In fact, when I'm in gratitude mode and I'm pulling back every single stroke, I'm aware, I'm actually okay. This is actually fine right now. It doesn't hurt. Does it work? Yes. Is it mildly uncomfortable? Yes, especially when it's high cardio output day. But I'm actually okay. There's nothing actually happening to me. It's my brain saying, yeah, but it might. It might get really hard. How long am I going to have to do this? How many years are you going to have these rowing workouts? And it's just off in the future, and it's suffering because of the anticipation of pain and suffering later, right? But to bring it back to now, I'm okay. And that gratitude practice, that practice of feeding the desire voice and kind of shushing the defeatist voice, is what helps it get done. Now, I know I talked to you about a lot of complicated things, and the reason I did that is because our community is a thinking man's community. We're not in a woo-woo community. We're not a community that just thinks you need bigger biceps and a bigger cock to be a better man. That's rubbish. We help men actually who are deeply thinking men who want to know how things work, men who want to have excellent self-mastery, but self-mastery based on deep understanding, on wisdom, on things that are evidential, things that they can see and touch and understand. And so I'm talking to you this way because that's how we are as a community. We're a community for the thinking man, a community for the deep man, a community for men of character. And we actually have a mentoring program, a 6-month mentoring program dedicated to just this idea of understanding your inner dialogue and how it shows up for you every day in either sabotage or desire, in defeat or desire, and learning how to really get a handle on this inner dialogue, how to use it for your advantage, and how to let it, or to make it stop tripping you up. How this inner dialogue, because it happens so subtly, is actually leading you to every suffering result you have in your life. And men tell us all the time that it's the most profound experience they've ever had. I'm not saying that to you to blow or to pat ourselves on the back, but because men have really profited from learning to understand the mechanics of their inner dialogue, how to harness those for their well-being, for self-mastery, and it's making huge improvements to their life, to their relationships, and to their careers. And men tell us this all the time. Most men who come into our orbit actually are in a pretty defeated state. when we first meet them. Their relationships aren't going well. Many of them are in the process of separation and divorce. They're facing the loss of half of their assets, seeing their kids half the time. And a good bit of them will actually turn that around in this process because of learning more about this inner dialogue. Now, I'll be straight up honest with you. Some men just really struggle to turn away from that voice of defeat. Some men are so addicted to letting that voice rule them that they still struggle, and that pains us. And there's nothing that we can do as mentors to make a man stop looking at that voice. We can show him how, but at the end of the day, he's got to decide to do it. But the men that do routinely tell us over and over and over again about the massive transformation that they've experienced from that process. That course, The Renewed Masculine Man, is a group mentoring experience. It's 6 months long. It's $1,500. There, I just gave you the whole sales pitch. You won't hear any other sales pitch about it. It's $250 a month, which is cheaper than a really cheap car payment for 6 months. And it's an epic experience. It's deeply connecting for men. Like I said, men report all kinds of substantial transformation along the way. We measure this with different testing and metrics, and so we're very aware of a quantifiable level of change that men experience. And we think if you enjoy videos like this, you would enjoy that program. And so with that, I'm going to wish you a good day. I need to go clean up from this row and move on with the rest of my day. And if you have questions or comments, I invite you to just scroll down below and add them in the comments. We do try to be a channel that interacts with all of our comments and questions. And if you want to go even deeper than that, I encourage you to look in the description. You'll find a link where you can set up a complimentary call with myself or another one of the mentors on Mentoring Men to explore more of what mentoring is like. You'll get a session that is exactly what we would do in a one-on-one in a long-term arrangement. And you can get somebody who's going to understand you, who can deeply reflect on what's going on in your life, share some feedback, share some encouragement, and share some empowerment to help you go from wherever you are now to the next level. With that, I wish you a good day. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.